relate to and appreciate, which says inquiry, effort, and equanimity, as taught by Bhagavad Gita. This is the ideal of Sthita Prajna. And I'm sure Mr. Chandramouli will expound on this in great detail and in his inimitable way. Everybody knows Chandramouli ji. He visits us every year. He's the father of Karthik Chandramouli, our temple EC member, and he has been very generous with imparting his wisdom and practical, down-to-earth advice and knowledge to many people in different discussion groups. By training, Chandramouli ji is a chemical engineer with management qualifications. He retired as director from a few private companies in India. His great interest in the practical Vedanta, as preached by Swami Vivekananda. He has undergone a systematic study of Vedantic scriptures and Prakarana Granthas under the guidance of Swami Paramarthanand of Arshavidya Gurukulam order. His deep involvement with the Raman Ashram of Tiruvananthamalai and J. Krishnamurti Foundation has helped him to have a more balanced view of application of Shastras and practical life. He actively participates in heritage camps organized by Balgokulam of HTCI and also delivered a series of lectures for Arshavidya Gurukulam last year. He was born in Tamil Nadu and currently he's living in Carmel with his son Karthik and family. So I invite Chandramouli ji to join us and enlighten us with his discourse on inquiry, effort, and equanimity.
Namaste, Vinsayji. Is the audio, video clear?
Yes, sir. It's very good. And I think you have taken great pains to make sure that you have this whole thing set up very well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Om Sagana Bhavatu Sagano Gunatu Saghaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadidamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadasiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmatacharya Paryantam Bhante Guru Paramparam. Om. Since we are online from the home, sometimes perhaps the inevitable sound from the domestic work may come. Please kindly bear with me. Okay. I am very thankful to the temple authorities and also the Gita Mandal organizers, especially Mr. Sanjay Vinse, for giving me an opportunity to share what all the little knowledge I got on Gita. The topic that I have taken is Sthita Prajna. This Sthita Prajna is normally interpreted as mental calmness by and large in the any kind of a society. Somehow I am little different in the idea of Sthita Prajna, and it is not just a calmness of the mind, it is much more than that, much beyond that. The calmness of the mind, whoever is having, may be able to be very successful, taking care of facing all the challenges of normal life and be calm. That is Satvik. That guna is called Satvik guna, which is very good. But that is not Sthita Prajna as indicated in Gita. Sthita Prajna is a person who is always in abide by the Atma, and he is always in that Brahma stage. A realized person. He is called Sthita Prajna. Subsequently, in my talk, we will see what are the details. Now, the Sthita Prajna meaning is, Sthita means stable, and Prajna is nothing but awareness. Normally, you might have come across that suppose somebody is terminally ill in the hospital, the relatives normally ask the doctor whether he is having prajna or not. That means, is he aware of the external world? So, prajna is awareness. So, the Sthita Prajna meaning as given in Gita is, a prajna is the awareness of the Brahma Vidya, the knowledge that he is having about the Brahman, the conscious principle. Now, this knowledge, it is in intellectual level, moment he learned from Guru. But from the intellectual level, to bring it to the regular living itself, then only the stability will take place. That situation is called Sthita Prajna. And in Gita, verse 55 to 57 and 69 to 72, Lord Krishna explains Sthita Prajna Lakshana. Sthita Prajna Lakshana means what? The person who is already a Sthita Prajna, how does he behave? How does he walk? How does he react with the world? How does he transact? These are the Lakshanas of the Jnani that he explains. And from verse 58 to 68, he gives the sadhanas that are required to become a Sthita Prajna.
Mr. Chandramouli, just 1 minute. I just want to tell people that if you have questions on the talk, we have got a telephone number given on the screen. Please text your questions on that, and we will be able to present your questions to Mr. Chandramouli at the end of his talk. Thank you. Sorry.
Should I continue?
Yeah, please. Sorry.
The verse 58 to 68, the sadhanas are given. In fact, between becoming a Sthita Prajna and the sadhanas, honestly, if you ask me, the sadhanas much more tough. See, that is why what happens is, most of the people do not really think about sadhana or follow about sadhana. Instead of that, they would like to directly jump to Upanishad and try to understand how to become a jnani. That is why a lot of frustration, lot of disillusionment, and finally declaring that after all what is there in Upanishad, we do not understand, it is not for us. That's mainly because sadhanas are very tough. Let us see what are they. Arjuna, what he does, he is also having the same predicament like that. Before he listened to Krishna, he wants to know what is this Sthita Prajna fellow, so that if there is some advantage, I can also become. So that the same kind of attitude he is also having it. So he is asking in the second chapter, in the 54th verse, "Oh Arjuna, you please tell me how he is Sthita Prajna, how he walks, how he conducts himself." Then Krishna says in a very nice way, he is a person who is always in Atma. Atmanyeva Atmana Tushtaha. He is always in Atma, that is, he is always in fulfillment. So he is not requiring anything from this world. Whatever the action that he is taking, maybe for his bare minimum living or for the benefit of the universe. He doesn't have any of his action expecting his own only advantage. He doesn't have such kind of a approach at all. He is a guy who is always abide by the Parabrahman. What is that meaning of it is, the Jnani is the one person who does not have any desire of his own, and he is also fearless. The fear is coming because of attachment. So he is also fearless. And because of these drawbacks, since it is not there with him, he is also not having any anger. Anger, when it comes, when you are losing or some kind of unexpected things are happening which you do not want, the anger comes. So he is also not angry. Anytime he never becomes angry. He is always stable in this kind of a condition. That is why he is called Sthita Prajna. Now the question comes, okay, we have understood about what is Sthita Prajna, but how do I become a Sthita Prajna? For becoming a Sthita Prajna, as I told earlier, we have to do a lot of sadhanas. Once these sadhanas are understood and then we successfully undergo that, then there is a change in personality. From Tamo Guna or a Rajo Guna Pradhana, you come to Sattvic Guna, a calm, serene, nice person. Because of the calmness of mind, since you do not have any kind of a unnecessary thinking, you become an adhikari to study the scriptures on the jnana. This is called jnana yoga. But unfortunately, learning the Brahma Vidya from the scriptures directly will never be successful, because it is such a subtle subject. If you directly get into the scriptures, you may not be able to appreciate many subtle meanings that have been given. For example, let us take Atma. This one word Atma is being utilized for body, mind, and also what I call intellect, and also for regular Atma itself. So which place, what kind of a meaning that we have to take, that can be done only by a guru, because he has thoroughly studied from his guru, and also he is also a realized person. So if you are attempting to understand the scriptures directly, you will have your own meaning, and that meaning may help you to spiritually progress, or that meaning may completely divert you in a different area. So that risk cannot be undertaken. The next stage is, whatever the study that you are doing through the guru, even if you have understood, it is only in the intellectual level. You are not started living on that. So what happens, this knowledge, a pragya, it has to be completely followed practically in life, and that is called a sadhana called nitidhyasana, which we will see subsequently. Now a question will come, why to have sadhanas? What is the reason for that? The sadhanas are done in 3 levels. We have to do sadhana even for body, we have to conduct sadhanas even for mind, and also we have to conduct sadhana for intellectual level also. These 3, if they are attacked properly through the sadhana, then only your ego, the ahankara and the mamakara, that is, I am doing everything, it is all mine, that kind of an attitude will totally go away, and an egoless person only can become a jnani. So what is the reason for doing sadhana for the body? Because this body can be a nuisance value. When you are going to sit for upasana, or when you are going to study the scriptures, any kind of a pain or disturbance or certain kind of uneasiness in the body, it will disturb you from your task of studying the scriptures. That is why body has to be maintained perfectly. It is not that muscle building or weight lifting at all. A body normally, which is nice, very comfortable to you. That is why this Hatha Yoga, normally by Patanjali, it is quite properly taught. The next is, in life we have got a lot of miseries. Sometimes good things are happening, sometimes bad things are happening. We have to accept all these ups and downs in a very equal mind. For that, you have to improve your personality, you have to strengthen your mind. So for that, sadhanas are there. Instead of running away from the problems, see, there are many people, just because they are afraid of meeting the life, they have become sannyasi. That is not a correct attitude. So instead of running away from this life, you can very well be there in the life, face it, with the boldness, and for that only these sadhanas are meant. Obviously, when your mind is calm, your intellect is cooperating with you, you become a sattvic person and an adhikari, then you are suitable for Brahma Vidya. What are all the sadhanas? I have already discussed. Now next is sadhanas for the mind. What are they? We are going little detail. The sadhanas for the mind is, normally mind has got desire and fear. You cannot avoid it. Right from the birth, you see, even if it's a child, it wants certain kind of kilonas. Even the boy wants to have certain kind of any kind of gadgets. Then an adult, he wants certain kind of a material. The material kind of aspiration, it continues up to the end of your life. Lot of desires are there. And the fear, it comes because of two things. One is you think that you are the body. And because of that, losing the body, ultimately, which is called death, that is a major fear every human being is having it. The next fear is whatever you are possessing as yours, whatever you think that these are all your properties, fear of losing them continuously there. That is a more and more you procure and more you keep with you and then attach with that, the fear increases. The problem with the fear is it leads to himsa. You know, in the world you can normally find those who are highly timid. Those are the people maximum they are having himsa attitude because they are afraid something will harm them. So that is why that himsa attitude is there. So fear is not good for us. Next is the desire. What is the problem of desire is, if the desire is fulfilled immediately, more and more desire will come and finally it will convert itself to a greed. By any chance the desire is not fulfilled, then it becomes an anger. Lord Krishna says, when an anger comes, your intellect is totally lost. Buddhi nasam. Immediately your intellect does not work. When your intellect does not work, whatever kind of a philosophy you might have learned in your life, that also doesn't work. It doesn't come in hand. So finally you ruin yourself. So the sadhanas that have been recommended by Shastras for eradicating all these limitations are, first and foremost, Karma Yoga. Then second is we have to understand and have Viveka. Viveka is what? The awareness of what? Whatever the Nitya, Anitya, Vastu, Vivekaha. What is permanent? What is the essence? What is ephemeral? What are all permanent in this world? What are all temporary in this world? There is no point in attaching yourself with the temporary things, because temporary things will disappear. It will go away from you. When it is going away from you, it gives you dukkam, and then life becomes misery. So attach with the one which is absolutely permanent. The next is called vairagya. Vairagya is nothing but avoiding raga and dvesha, liking and disliking. You might have come across many people that I like this, I don't like this, or I hate this. You know, it's a very, very common kind of a word that's being used. This liking and disliking, it is in the mind level. One single object may be liked by somebody and the same object may be hated by somebody. So it is only the mind level. It is not problem with the object. It is our attitude. So if you are going to have liking and disliking, then your entire behavior pattern itself changes. The next the Shastra recommends sadhana shatpati, that is shatka sampatyaha, that is sixfold discipline. Shatka sampati means sixfold discipline. What are the sixfold discipline? We will discuss in detail. If you are able to successfully undergo all these sadhanas with your willpower and with your shraddha, you will automatically have an aspiration for liberation, which is called mumukshatvam. Why this mumukshatvam has been insisted, I tell you that. Supposing, imagine you are successfully undergone the sadhanas. After undergoing the sadhanas, what happens is you become a very calm person, and because of the calmness that you are having in the mind, your intellect is very sharp. When that intellect is very sharp, and then if you are not able to go further in spirituality, and if you are not after mumukshutvam, the same intellect which is very sharp may become devil's workshop. That is why, most of the people who have done sadhanas, and then they have become calm mind, and they may be what I call maybe sannyasis or maybe grihasthas. They may be very sattvic persons, but sometimes their intellect will work in a negative directions. Because of that, lot of embarrassment they may bring it to themselves. You might have come across in your practical life. Then next comes we will be going into details of some of the sadhanas so that we will have a clear idea. Karma yoga is normally very widely talked, but people still are not very clear as to how to do karma yoga practically. It is nothing but a skill to do any karma without any attachment. Some of the very famous example I always remember in my mind is the mother's liking to the child. Mother doesn't expect anything from the child. She does all karmas towards the child, but she doesn't expect anything. Imagine, suppose you are having that kind of a mother's affection or kind of a equivalent love towards God or towards any kind of a person, you will also be doing the karma without any expectation. This is called karma yoga. In fact, if we have to deal in detail with every aspect of the sadhana, it will take a very long time. So I am just giving you a small description and then passing on to the next sadhana. Then comes Nitya Anitya Viveka, which already I explained. And Vairagya is Ragadvesha. Then the sixfold disciplines I have to explain now. Sixfold disciplines are Shatka Sampati are Sama, Dama, Uparama, Titiksha, Samadhana and Shraddha. Sama is nothing but having a control on your indriyas, your sense organs. The Dama is to avoid all unnecessary activities. Already we have enough activities which keeps our mind totally occupied. And if you are going to invite further and further activities, the mind will become so busy, you will not have any time to have scriptural study or listening to Guru. That kind of attitude itself will not come. Then comes Uparama. The Uparama is what? Once you are having an Indriya control, most of the thoughts will go. Because temptations are not there. You don't seek for the pleasures. Because of that, almost your mind becomes calm. Then next is Dhamma, that is avoiding unnecessary kind of activities. Further, the mind will become calm. Then such a calm mind, you can very well turn inwards. Start searching your inner soul. Practically find out who you are, what for you have come, what is your personality. There are so many things to study on yourself. Then comes Titiksha. The Titiksha is a very important thing. It's a forbearance. See, normally what happens, even small examples we can see, if the summer is coming, oh my God, it's very hot. If the winter is coming, my God, bahut thand lagta hai, it's very cold. Then if somebody is talking with you nicely, oh, he's boring going on talking. Somebody doesn't talk with you. No, he's not talking with me, he's neglecting me. See, we are always having certain kind of a problems in dealing with this world. Losing is a problem, gaining is a problem. Everything is a problem. Go on finding fault with the thing. This is called a problem in living itself. So titiksha is the one which is giving you the enough patience, developing any patience to accept ups and downs. Whether I'm having popularity or I'm not having popularity, it does not make any difference. Whether I'm having sufferings or happiness, I'm neither overjoyed nor depressed. So that kind of a moderate balance is called a titiksha. Then because of all these kind of qualities when you develop, then you become samadhana. This is samadhana is mental equanimity. This is not sthita pragya. This is what people normally misunderstand with sthita pragya. Sthita pragya comes after attaining the jnana. Whereas samadhana is an equanimity after doing all these sadhanas, you become a sattvic person, you are eligible to study the shastras, and that is called mental equanimity. Once you get a mental equanimity, automatically Shraddha also comes very well. See, you have got the willpower totally concentrated to a direction. Otherwise, without any kind of a calm mind, our willpower doesn't work at all because we do not have a direction. We do not have concentration on a particular thing. We do not have a goal. So the mind wanders from here and there and there. Whereas if you get a calm mind, the Shraddha automatically comes. Then sadhana for the intellect. Intellect sadhana is very simply, I can tell, it is called nididhyasana. What it is, whatever you are studying, scriptural study you are doing it about, this is called Brahma Vidya. What is Brahman? How does he reflect? And what is manifestation? How the universe is created? How the material aspect of world is taken care of? How the conscious principle is there? So there are so many things which you have to study. Once we study that, what happens is it is only the intellect level. From the intellect level, we have to bring it to the practical level. That you can do it only by the nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is what? Suppose in the study it says Satyam Vada, which says always tell the truth. You have to sit calmly and then search within yourself, am I speaking the truth regularly or am I not? If I am not speaking the truth, why I am not speaking the truth? So further and further observe yourself. Then slowly you will start understanding the limitations in following the truth and you will start correcting your personality. Suppose the Shastra says, you are not the body. Then sit calmly and then find out, is it true that I am not the body? What is the connection I am having with the body? Why I should not be the body? There are so many questions will come, why you are not a body? So those questions, are you getting the answer from yourself or not, you find out. Otherwise, again, go back to the scripture, study that clearly, and then understand that clearly. Again, sit calmly and then try to probe within yourself whether you have accepted this concept of the scriptures, whether you have assimilated this concept of the scripture. This is called nididhyasana. When you are going on, this is where the upasana is very important. This is where the meditation helps a lot. Meditation is not just levitation or just transcendental meditation, means immediately you just go into samadhi. It will all just cheating ourselves. The real meditation purpose is to improve your personality, deeply observing your drawbacks within you. We have a lot of drawbacks. One by one, all the drawbacks have to be removed so that your personality improves. This is the sadhana for the intellect. Because intellect is always logically will prevent you from further progress. It will be going on raising the questions. All these questions have to be answered by yourself. Now, all the sadhanas you have completed, whatever so far we have talked, I am just summarizing it. See, any samsari, he can become a sthita prajna, a jnani. Let us not unnecessarily declare ourselves that I am not suitable at all. Everyone is suitable to become a jnani. But what? Since even for playing a cricket or a basketball, you have to undergo a lot of training. The same way, you have to undergo a lot of sadhanas. First and foremost, you have to have that urge for liberation. Basically, you should develop an urge for liberation. If you are not developing an urge for revelation, if you're not having the shraddha, the sadhanas will not be understood and sadhanas will not be followed. The next is, even though you have become an adhikari, even though you are having a common mind, what is the problem that is happening is, you will not be able to understand the scriptures. Why you will not be able to understand the scripture? It's mainly because there are a lot of subtle sentences are there, words are there, words, different meanings are there, different contexts are there. All those things definitely can be explained very well only by a learned guru. Otherwise, if we understand in a different way, what will happen is we will be going in a different direction. All our efforts of sadhana and everything will go to waste. The next comes, without becoming adhikari, is there any way of acquiring knowledge? Absolutely not. That is why the spiritual path becomes so difficult for so many people, because when it comes to sadhana, a lot of discipline is required. So when we are lazy or when we are not prepared to have that kind of discipline, especially the moral life is very, very important. Understanding the dharma is very, very important. So understanding the bhakti or understanding the what you call surrendering mentality or humility, all these things have to be properly understood. Once you become a proper human being, like a sattvic person, then only you can go to spiritual. Suddenly you go to what you call Upanishad, perhaps certain sentences you may be understanding, but you will not be able to practically follow it. This is the only way, that is sadhana, studying the scriptures from your guru and then following it in life. This is the only way. Otherwise, you bhakti yoga itself in Kali Yuga, bhakti itself will give you liberation. You don't have to bother about scriptural study of Upanishad and all. You can do karma yoga, then you become liberation. You have to do good things to others, automatically liberation will come. These are all just a shallow kind of approach only. These are all not going to give you the liberation. That should be very clearly understood. Sorry. Apart from all our kind of effort, whatever we are doing, God's grace is also required. So that is why right from the beginning, when you are doing the scriptural study, we should have that humility to accept that I am a very, very ordinary small person and God's grace is required. You might have come across the people who have studied a lot of Upanishad and other things. They would have intellectually, they would have understood so well. Automatically, they also become arrogant. See, my guru used to say, knowledge you are acquiring only in order to mitigate the ego. But if the same knowledge is going to give you an ego, where will you go? So that is why more and more you study, more and more you understand, more and more humble we have to become. This is very, very important. The jnani means people have got an idea that he will make miracles. He will walk on the water, then he will float, then suddenly he will show his right hand and immediately some fruits will come and then he will give it to others. I have not found that anywhere in Shastra that this kind of a miracle. Puranas, yes. Puranas, the rishis have given sharp, the rishis have given boons and all these things. Puranas are different. It is for different purpose. But whereas in real Shastra, especially in the Vedanta, we do not believe in these kind of miracles. Finally, one more myth is there with the people that if you become a jnani, then you will be useless to do any transactions in the world. Shankaracharya was a great jnani and he established 4 mutts in the 4 corners of the India, traveling twice India by walk. That much he was active. So between transaction, between jnani and ordinary person, the difference in doing the transaction is very, very simple. A samsari, when he is doing the transaction, he is affected by whatever the results are there. And apart from that, he is doing transaction with a certain selfish motive. So he is always misery in doing the transaction. Whereas for Jnani, if a transaction is done, it is only for others. So he is not worried about the result. Second thing, because of others' activities, if any kind of a problem comes to Jnani, it doesn't affect him at all. He accepts it with a smiling face. So it is not that Jnanis cannot do transaction. In fact, Ramana Maharshi is a classic example. Recently, well-known Jnani. He used to write a lot of poems. And then he used to give a lot of explanation for such poems. So he was quite active. Karma can be done up to the end, whether you are a jnani or a samsari. The difference is, for a samsari, any karma is always affecting him emotionally and intellectually, whereas for jnani, it doesn't affect him at all. With this, I complete my talk. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyade. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandramouli ji. That was indeed very enlightening, and you have covered a vast gamut of ideas. And Sthita Prajna is an ideal, but some people have come up with the question that if you are with equanimity, do you not display emotions? Because in life, people otherwise think you are uncaring or unfeeling. How would you address that?
Yes. Showing emotion is one thing. The emotions affecting you a different thing. You can show emotions. For example, somebody is coming to you. You don't have to keep a stone face. You can smile and then you can give compliments and you can welcome them. But the welcoming them or complimenting them should not affect you in any way. Suppose you are complimenting and he is not responding properly, it should not affect your mind. Suppose you are complimenting, he is not accepting it, it should not affect your mind. So emotions can be shown for the sake of happiness of others. But at the same time, any kind of emotions within you should not affect you. That is the difference for the mental equanimity.
Okay. Sumit Ghosh has asked the question that equanimity is mental health, or in a difficult situation, when you're handling a crisis, then how do you deal with that? That was what he wanted to ask.
For a person who is not having mental equanimity, I am talking about samadhanam. This mental equanimity is not sthita prajna. I am talking about calm mind. Suppose somebody is not having a calm mind, if any kind of a misery comes, my God, what? He will immediately shout and then react very vehemently, and then he thinks his life is gone, everything. Whereas a person who is having a calm mind, he will initially be shocked, perhaps he may be little worried, but he will immediately calm his mind to find out what is the next step he has to take it. That is where it helps. The mental equanimity helps in this way. There's no point in worrying about or brooding about the problem that you have got. Yes, the problem has arrived at my doorstep, but what is the next step I have to take? So the intellect has to work for the next step. Intellect working is possible only if our mind is emotionally calm.
Somebody has asked about, what do you think of the concept which is promoted by Sadhguru, where he talks of inner engineering? Is that the same as is that the way to lead life, by understanding yourself better and ensuring that your own mechanisms approach things in the right spirit?
Of course, I have not undergone this course of inner engineering offered by Sadhguru. So I am not authorized to make comment on that. But one thing I can say, more or less, his approach is also the same. First, become a calm person through yoga, through Kriya Yoga, and finally it will lead you to the samadhi or self-realization. This is what his approach, I think, if at all I have understood him. Since I have not undergone his inner engineering, and since I have not attended his class continuously, only lectures I have heard, so I am not authorized to answer this with authenticity.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. And um, there are questions relating to vairagya, which is again an ideal which is required for achieving equanimity, and that is
Yes,
where the people have commented of the difficulty of vairagya because they are involved in practical realities of life.
absolutely, you are right. See, one weakness we are having is anything that we are having, the present life that we are having, we are thinking that it's a practical reality and we cannot solve it. That's a major hindrance with us. That should be first removed. This is completely thwarting our willpower. We have to understand this may be the life, but I'll try to come out of it. This is one thing. Second thing is Raga Dvesha, the problem is very unique. Suppose you like something. Example, let us take the family problem itself. Suppose you like a person. Whatever he does, it will be acceptable to you. The same way, when you don't like a person, even the good things that they are doing, you will not be able to appreciate and see it. Because every one of us, if you carefully see, we first form an image of that person within ourselves. Afterwards, our mind or our personality doesn't deal with that person. Only the image that we are having within us is only dealing with that person. Even at a distance when he is coming, you might have seen the people making a comment to his friend, oh, this fellow is coming, he's such a bad fellow. This fellow is coming, oh, he's a very good person. Even before approaching, on that day, particular day before approaching, you may say that he's a very good guy. And then when he comes near you, he may give such a kind of a behavior that you will be totally disillusioned. So that is why at least some practice we have to learn in our life. Instead of image based or opinion based transactions, slowly we have to change it to issue based transactions. Meaning, we do not have any opinion formed on anybody. When we are dealing with that person at a particular moment, what exactly he wants, what is the real issue, what is the real transaction, on that only we have to carry out our transaction. This way it will be very beneficial for us to deal with the people.
Okay. There is a question by Kumar Dave about, can you expand or tell more about mumukshutam? Mumukshutam.
Mumukshutvam is nothing but aspiration for liberation. Liberation is what? Generally, liberation is freedom, right? Freedom from what? Freedom from worries of life, freedom from attachment to unwanted things, freedom from creating desire, seeking the pleasures, freedom from the ever problem giving body, freedom from ever and thoughtful mind. You are going on coming out of all these things slowly by understanding it. Without understanding the limitation, you cannot come out at all. You know very well that when you are 10 years old, the body was something, 25 years something, 40 years something, and 65 years something else. Which body you were? Was it that young body? Or was it that middle body? Or this old body which is giving you a lot of problem? Which one you are? You are changed. So which one you can have it now? Do you know what is going to be your body tomorrow? You do not know. So we are having our own attachment in the things which are changing, which are not taking your permission for changing, which are going to go away from you also without your permission. So once you understand that, then you start really searching which one is the permanent where I can abide by. That is Brahma Vidya. That is Mumukshatva. That's what it is.
So, Thank you very much, Chandramouli ji. I think this was a very enlightening time we spent with you.
Thank you,
And
sir.
before you end, I think there is just one more question.
Yeah.
This, of course, may take a longer time to explain, but the
I'll
question
try
is
to be
that
brief.
we
I'll
could
try
do,
to be brief.
okay,
Yeah.
if we could do one thing to move towards become Sthita Prajna, what would you recommend? Baby steps to achieve it. This is where Rajneesh.
Since all of us are practically all of us are dealing with the regular day-to-day so-called practical life, the first thing I would recommend is please in a day, right from morning to night, you please observe your thought. You should have that, at least develop that capability to observe your thought. The moment a thought comes, you please find out whether it is needed now or not. When that thought is not needed now, immediately please dispose it off in the beginning itself. For example, when you are listening to me now, what is the use of thinking whether you have switched off the fridge or you have switched off the gas or switched off the thing? Some kind of other thing like what is happening now in India. There is no point in that because it has got no relevance. Today you are here only to listen to Gita lecture, right? So if you start practicing that unwanted thoughts whenever it comes, immediately you dispose it up, you will find slowly your mind becomes very, very calm. Because unwanted thoughts only gives unwanted brooding only gives unwanted miseries. This I would recommend.
Very good, sir. And this is you can give a one-liner on this. Somebody just called and asked if moksha and sthita prajna is the same.
Moksha
Means to an
is
end, as far as my understanding is concerned, but I think it would be. I would like to hear from you.
Moksha is the name given for that Sthitaprajna's condition, the stage. Sthitaprajna indicates a person who is having that mumukshatvam and moksha. He is called Jnani.
Okay. Thank you. I think we will end this discussion here because we are almost running out of time.
If I may, if I may say something, if you allow me to say one thing.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. See, there are very interesting questions are coming, in fact. So someday we have to really understand our Sanatana Dharma. It is my personal kind of ambition. So we are, Sanjay Vinsay has got details of one satsanga that we are conducting. If any of you are interested, kindly please contact him.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
will. I will be glad to share that link with anybody who is interested. Please contact me later. Thank you.